Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm pleased to see we had great registration and attendance. I will say I'm pleased to see it, but not at all surprised. We polled our NATSO members last year about what they would be investing in over the coming 12 to 15 months. And a whopping 45% said QSRs or other food franchises. The only thing that scored higher was remodels and rebuilds. And why did these scores so high? I think anyone in the industry can tell you, because it's a time of just incredible change in the industry. And one of the biggest factors driving that change is fuel efficiency. And as vehicles are increasingly fuel efficient, travel centers are finding reasons for customers to stop that don't rely on that fuel tank. And food is a great reason to stop. I'm Christine Schoessler, I'm NATSO COO, and I'm joined by two stellar guests today who are going to help us understand how you can find a franchise partner to help you create that great reason to stop at your travel center. Catie Trent is with us. She is a strategic account specialist with Chester's, and Chester's has been a NATSO Chairman Circle member. That's one of our top tier of supporters for years, at least as long as I've been with NATSO, I think, and they have been a fixture in the travel center space since Chester's inception. We also have Shannon Iverson with us, who is Vice President for Franchise Development at Taco John's, and they are a preferred partner. So thank you, both Catie and Shannon, for your support for our industry. And Shannon, like Catie, brings a wealth of franchise expertise and insight into today's conversation. So we're glad to have you both. Let's kick off, Catie, if you can share a little bit with us about Chester's.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Catie Trent with Chester's Chicken. We are headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama. We are third generation family owned and have been in business for over 70 years. Today, we have 1,300 locations in every state in the United States. So we're very proud of that national brand recognition. We have built a cult following with professional drivers and connoisseurs of great fried chicken. At Chester's, we always have fresh poultry that we're utilizing. We're hand breading that at store level and fresh frying it. We offer operational training and field support to all of our stores. And we have a strong focus on margins. Obviously, profitability goals are of vital importance. And lastly, Chester's is a turnkey concept. So it's meant to fit in as little of 400 square feet of space.
And Chester's is always a big hit at our convention. I know everybody always wants to know where Chester's booth is and whether there'll be samples. So we always appreciate that.
Love feeding people.
And Shannon, could you tell us please a little bit about Taco John's?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, thank you so much for this opportunity, Christine. It's an honor to be here. So glad that we're NATSO members. Looking forward to meeting every member out there if the opportunity comes up. But let me just tell you a little bit about Taco John's. Taco John's, we, not many people know this, but we're the third largest Mexican QSR in the United States. We have 360 plus restaurants. We are in 23 states, primarily the upper Midwest. And similar to Chester's, we have a rich 55-year history. We're still family owned with the third generation. And we do pride ourselves on our dedicated support with franchisee collaboration because that part of it's so important. We focus in on a great onboarding experience right from the beginning. We continue that with operations excellence as well as training, not only initial training, but ongoing training. Local store marketing is actually, it's very critical, not only to a traditional, but definitely a non-traditional brand, and really adapting to the unique needs and customer base for a travel center. And then also we work with our franchisees on growth planning. And in addition to that, our AUV is almost 1.7. We do have 5 strong day parts, and Like Chester's, we are a quality brand as well. We use premium ingredients. Our beef is 100% beef, and we cook that fresh in the stores every day. In addition to that, our taco shells are cooked fresh in the store as well as the taco salad shells. We're known for our bold flavors and, of course, for our raving fans. And down below, I put just a little snapshot of our history. You can see in 1968, we opened our first store in Cheyenne, Wyoming. That's where we have our headquarters today. We do have a support center that's strategically located in Minneapolis, so that makes travel easy, especially for those 23 states that we're supporting. In 1969, we began franchising, and then in 73, we introduced this drive-through concept. So we were really working back then to bring in innovation. Also, we opened our 100th store in 1975, and a very interesting fact that you may not know is that Taco John's, we coined the phrase Taco Tuesday, and today actually happens to be Taco Tuesday. So thank you, Christine, for lining this up on a Taco Tuesday. And then in 1989, we trademarked Taco Tuesday. We now share it with the rest of the world, so that is now open to everyone to enjoy.
Thanks, Shannon. And Catie, I think you are the two perfect people to help us dig into these topics today. And we've got 3 topics that we're going to dive into. We'll talk about each one and then take questions. But first off, we're going to talk about what makes travel centers attractive to franchise brands. And I personally feel like in a lot of cases, travel centers are in the driver's seat now, but I'd love to hear your take on that. Second, what do travel centers need to know about their own business in order to even figure out which franchisee or which franchise brand might be a good fit? I think every travel center is unique. Every travel center has its own strategy. Not every franchise is going to be the right strategic fit. So what should our members be looking at? And then third, how can the travel centers make their best fit pitch? How do we put our best feet forward, so to speak, and make that case for the individual travel center? So everyone who's on the call, type your questions as we go. Amy Toner, who is the executive director of our foundation, is on. She's going to make sure we get to as many questions as possible. Interestingly, Amy also hosts the Truck Stop Here podcast, which has done a lot of episodes on food programs and on franchising. So I think you should take a look at that. There's good resources there. One final housekeeping note, our panelists are not allowed to answer questions about future earnings, about revenues, financial projections, and that's a regulatory issue. So just know that if they can't answer your question, it's not that they don't want to, it's just there's rules around what they are and are not allowed to speak about. So let's dive into our first topic. What makes travel centers attractive to franchise brands today? And Shannon, you touched on this a little bit earlier. What's a non-traditional franchise partner, and why are franchise brands looking at that non-trad space today?
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate that question. Really just growing up in franchising here, and especially over the last 6 years, I've seen definitely a change in the attractiveness of travel centers to franchise brands. And I'll tell you what's unique about franchise centers, or what's different, I should say, non-traditional versus traditional. And that is, those non-traditional opportunities are really what is different from, that it's outside of the standalone brand or infrastructure that's there at a retail location. So that obviously would include the airports, travel centers, also let's see, college campuses, as well as universities, sports venues, ghost kitchens, hospitals, and also turnpike. So what makes them attractive to franchise brands today? It really is, they serve as a diverse, steady stream of traffic. that offers quick, convenient dining options to customers. They also have high foot traffic and, of course, extended operating hours. They typically have an infrastructure that can already support a QSR brand. And then, of course, being strategically located along the highway. And again, it's just that steady flow of traffic and a way to really diversify that brand and get the awareness out there as well.
So even among non-traditional, it sounds like travel centers stand out a bit because of that foot traffic and because of their location. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. And then also looking at it from a growth perspective, franchisors would also look to layer in if they were going looking to expand into new markets and utilizing a layered approach to growth, that they could view travel centers as really, I don't want to say safe, but as a way for them to expand into new markets, because there's that captive audience, there's the traffic, the infrastructure is there, as well as some of the shared costs. So not only do travel centers bring in, the traffic, but they also bring in, that 1 mile radius around their stores. There could also be the neighborhoods where they could also cater to year round, in addition to the seasonality of those traveling guests.
And Catie, I'm guessing a lot of that sounds familiar to you. Chester's has been focusing on non-trad and travel centers for a very long time. Would you add anything on why travel centers were so attractive to Chester's?
Absolutely. The high volume of traffic flow. That high traffic results in great sales numbers and profits for Chester's operators.
Mhm.
It's also going to help with incredible product quality. As you're going through food quickly, as you're cooking it, you're going to be serving delicious, fresh food to your guest. So that high traffic is key.
And is there, the other thing to me that makes the travel centers stand out is that customer mix, that it's not just the four-wheel or the neighborhood, but that pro driver as well. Is there anything there that really stands out for you?
Yes, travel center guests are very loyal. So we see a lot of professional drivers frequenting their favorite travel centers as often as they can. And what we found with our Chester's guests is they eat at Chester's approximately 30% of our guests eat at Chester's multiple times a week. And that's a very high number, which speaks to the loyalty of the travel center guest. Another unique characteristic of the travel center guests that we see is that they truly do live on the road. And we've been told by professional drivers that they get tired of just the same fast food offerings that they see. So our loyal customers really appreciate that the food is freshly prepared and they feel like they're getting a home cooked meal, even though they're away from home.
Is there a success story that you can share with us? Anything that shows that win-win, both for you and for the travel center, right? If the travel center's profitability is growing, we all win.
Absolutely. So currently Chester's does business in about 170 travel centers. We have a long-standing relationship with Love's Travel Stops, and we've grown to over 100 locations with them in the past 10 to 15 years. And we truly do have a cult following of professional drivers. They love our menu. So that's been a win-win for Love's and for our brand as well. One more specific success story I will share is in Valley Center, California. We launched a new partnership with Horizon Fuel Center there, and we replaced a few concepts they had. It's a nationally recognized QSR that they had, and we replaced that several months ago, and their monthly sales tripled after they put the Chester's in. So that just speaks to, that professional driver cult following we have that we're so grateful for and always want to cater to and please them.
Great. Amy, I'm going to stop and see if we have any questions that we should take now.
Christine, we have a couple great questions, but they are, I think, better off with the next topic. So you guys are right on target, our questioners and our answers. So maybe switch to the next section and then we'll tackle them then.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Then our second discussion area, what makes travel centers, or what do you need to know to identify the right franchise brand for you? And I love the saying, if you've seen one travel center, you've seen one travel center, right? Everyone is unique, especially when you're looking at that independent market. And the strategies are so different based on where they're located, their customer mix, their labor mix. So before a travel center even calls a franchise brand to see if they can appeal to them, it's like the travel center has some work to do to make sure that they're narrowing down the field. So Shannon, I wonder if you could start us off with what are the two most important things that you feel like a travel center needs to know about their own business before they start looking to identify the right franchise brand for them?
Yeah, actually, I'll give you three, and that is one of the first things is that I would tell any operator, and that is really, identify and really know your infrastructure capabilities. Is your infrastructure ready to take on a QSR? Especially, the varying types of QSR. Do you have the management structure to train? Do you have the people there as well? And then the back of the house, is everyone, do you have enough support in your system in order to bring that on? Obviously, you've probably already done the financials as it relates to what type of investment that's going to require, equipment and all that. But outside of your readiness and the infrastructure's readiness, also what are your customer needs? So what are you looking to accomplish for the customer as well as your business model, as well as not just your customer, that traffic count, but then also again, that 1 mile radius, because you could be really serving and providing to two parallel paths there. So you want to have a good understanding of that. And then also, you're not in this for nonprofit. You're here to make a profit. So what type of profit are you looking to accomplish? And then at that point, I would start looking at the different brands that are out there. And that would really help just narrow down what type of complexity. Also, it's space availability too. And it's, do you have enough room also within that location, or can you expand upon your building in order to accommodate the required minimum square footage for that particular brand?
And it seems like there's a lot of choice out there now, that a lot of different brands that maybe had only one footprint before, those franchise brands now have different footprints that might fit into a travel center's space. So there really are more choices today.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of flexibility. I should say, when I started in franchising, it was not saying at Taco John's, but the agreement's non-negotiable, the menu's non-negotiable, but really since COVID, everything, in my opinion, or a lot of franchisors are, let's talk about it. Let's roll up our sleeves and see if we can make it fit. I've seen 1,200, minimum 1,200 square feet locations say, you know what, we can skinny this up with some shared resources, some shared space to really accommodate a 250 square foot location. And then, we can compromise on the menu and make it more, single serve portions versus just family style. So I think there's a lot of flexibility out there with brands who are more open to that. And in my opinion, like Taco John's, we welcome all these conversations and really a collaborative approach to make it happen.
Catie, what about you? What do you think are the most important things for that travel center to understand about their own business before they start looking at that universe of options?
I think that two of the most important things to consider are cost and commitment to labor. So first off, with cost, what are you willing to invest? So when you're looking at different brands, you need to consider, what royalties does a franchise charge? Are there franchise fees associated? Is there an advertising fund you have to pay into? What does the equipment cost? How much equipment do you have to buy to get started? Will you need to renovate a space? Do you need to add on to your existing footprint to accommodate the space? So those are all cost aspects. And then on the commitment to labor piece, it's of the utmost importance for top down to be committed to food service for it to be successful. And a great manager, hiring a great manager that you can rely on to deliver quality and deliver profits is huge for success there. So typically these concepts, whether it be chicken or whatever else, are very hands-on. There's food safety involved, there's labor involved, and you've got to have the right person managing that and committed to it.
And, you know, labor is top of mind for, I think, everyone, certainly in our issue, but I think in retail in general. So, Shannon, is there anything else you would add to that? Anything they need to understand about their own labor pool to make sure they're a fit with a franchise brand?
Absolutely. And that really should be in the due diligence process before you sign any franchise agreement, obviously. The brand should be able to lay out those exact labor needs for operations. And that is, you know, the number of staff that's required. But then not only that, by day part, and then also by sales volume. So that's really important. There's also other commitments, especially if you as the operator, which most operators are not going to go through like that 8-week training requirement. Typically you have, you know, management that or operations team or an operations team that would go through the required certified training. Some of those training requirements could be 8 weeks, and that could be 8 weeks out of state. So that how, you know, you have to take that in consideration. Do you have someone at the manager level with that skill set that could perhaps be away training for 8 weeks? I know other brands require at least 2 if you're not on the franchise agreement. So that could be 2 team members going out there for training. And, you know, also tied into to labor is what type of support does the brand offer as far as recruitment support? Most brands have some type of recruitment software or partnership with a third party that could help you, you know, really screen. But then in addition to that, you'd also want to know, does that brand have an employee recruitment, retention, as well as, you know, engagement platform that you could really leverage to help grow your brand? So labor is just not, you know, by the hour staffing. It's the training as well as the ongoing support that really helps with the overall, you know, labor requirements and needs that you're going to have as a franchisor.
That's a lot, Catie. I think, would you add anything onto that about the support to look for from the franchise brand?
I totally agree with Shannon on all of that. In the due diligence process, learning what that concept's going to offer in terms of training and ongoing support.
Yeah, and then matching it up with your capacity.
Absolutely.
One of the other pieces that you could look at for that franchise brand to see what they could offer you relates to me to customer behavior, and that's central, right, to any retail business. But for travel centers, what should they look for when they're examining potential franchise partners when it comes to data, to analytics, to understanding that customer? Shannon, why don't you start us off, and then I'm going to ask you, Catie.
Yeah, so I would start with the basics as it relates to just technology, right? Is that, well, today is so technology driven. You want to ensure that, you know, the brand that you're going with has the resources and, you know, really the stomach for always, you know, improving technology and being technology forward. So I'm going to start on the operations side, then I'll go into more of the, you know, the customer data and analytics. And that is, does that franchise brand have, you know, those tools, those technology tools that you need to operate an efficient, you know, really back of the house system? So that includes, you know, inventory control, sales projections for ordering, also labor schedulers and platforms there that can help you be more efficient with your labor as well as your food cost. You know, all of those checks and balances that a QSR would need, especially, you know, for Catie and I, our brands, we deal with some raw products. So we want to ensure that, all of those measures are in place. You just can't rely on, static documents. You have to have, technology in there to help support and to ensure that those standards are being met, and also, obviously for health standards too. But then as it refers to like really the data and the analytics for customers, and then to drive that customer success, and that is you really need a system that's going to offer that robust data analysis as well as the support. So not just spitting out data, if you will, but then also giving you the tools and support to drive and pull insights from there, and then some type of actionable follow through as well. So you have this great data on customer behavior, the preferences, as well as purchase patterns. You're going to need to know all of that in order to then drive your promotions, probably even product mix too, right? There might be some specialization that needs to happen in order to really cater to your customers. But all of that data is meaningless unless you have the support there to interpret it, and then take that and then put it into meaningful action that's going to give you a return on your investment. So again, those are all things that should be taken care of within that vetting and due diligence period before you even sign that franchise agreement. And the best way to do that is franchisee validation. Every franchise has to disclose a franchisee or a prospective franchisee, and that is, we send you the FDD, and in the FDD we're required to list all of our stores as well as all of the contact information for our franchise system. And you should be picking up the phone and talking to the franchisees and understanding from them firsthand. Obviously you're going to read the FDD and do your due diligence, but then validate it through those franchisees as well. Never had one franchisee turn down a franchisee prospect in franchisee validation. So you'll find that very, very enlightening.
Thanks, Shannon. One of the things that jumped out at me in there was you mentioned that data is just data unless you've got you're able to interpret it and there's support wrapped around that. Catie, when I think about Chester's and your longevity in the industry and spread, I'm going to guess that you have a lot of ability to help the members add insight to any data that they might have. Is that fair?
Absolutely. And I'm sure Shannon feels the same way. With when you have an established brand, there's so much that we can bring to the table in a partnership with travel centers. So not only do you have the national brand recognition, but we, over 70 years, have pressure tested thousands of products and procedures. We've done due diligence on multiple equipment suppliers. We've established competitive pricing with suppliers. We've built a reliable supply chain network. So those are all value adds outside of just the data that we can bring to the table and that you should be looking for when you're exploring partners.
One of the things about industry suppliers that I think is so important, especially when you're partnering with one of our independent members who may only have one or two locations, that you bring all that insight. It's almost like you can be their own, market research, right? Because, Shannon, you can talk about what Taco John's is seeing in other industries or what other experiences you've had. Catie, the same for you, and help bring some of that insight and lessons learned to your independent brands. I think that's a really powerful potential to be a strong partner with some of the smaller units that don't have, a national scope, maybe that they can experiment in one market and then, replicate it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what we are. We're a franchise. So, you're buying the business in the box as well as, all the support. And, we as a franchise brand are able to leverage all of that, the resources in order to support and help a single unit franchisee be successful as, 100 unit. So they definitely get that when they join a franchise brand.
Amy, why don't we pause there? I know you said you had some questions queued up for us. Why
Sure
don't we
do.
take them?
All right. How should a travel center operator think about market saturation with similar food offerings? So the number of taco QSRs, chicken QSRs, etc.
Yeah. I can go with that one if you like.
Yeah.
Right. So any franchise brand in their development department would have a real estate department with the resources and the software to do all of the market analysis, as well as, all of the demographic information, competitive analysis, market saturation. So as part of the vetting process, again, before you sign a franchise agreement, you should be having those business planning discussions about your exact location and to see if it's viable. And then they can share certain data. They're not going to share competitive sales data because they want to avoid making an earnings claim, but they can definitely show, how close you are to those other markets, as well as the traffic. And they would have an experienced real estate manager walking you through what does that mean for the travel center. Again, they're going to stay away from any earnings claims or sales claims or how well you might do, but you should be able to understand, and they should have measures in place to not approve a location that is too close to others, or they feel that there could be too much competitiveness for that particular QSR type.
Catie, is that something that you come across with Chester's? I imagine it's pretty similar to what Shannon just outlined.
Correct. We do an encroachment check on any possible new partner, and then would provide a feasibility study, exactly what Shannon just mentioned. That would all be a part of that feasibility study that we would present to the prospect.
Okay.
Do either of you work with grocery stores?
We do.
Yeah,
Okay.
not yet.
Okay. I think that a lot of people have this question. Where should travel centers start if they're working with a limited square footage?
Where should they start in terms of what? Like exploring what type of food would be best,
I
or?
think that like the crux of it is like, if you have a small space, like, do you have opportunities? What should you be looking at, and what's the market for it?
And I think
Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think we touched a little bit on it, and forgive me now, I can't remember if it was when we were chatting beforehand or when it started, but there's just so much more opportunity now. And Shannon, I think you mentioned that post-COVID, ask, right? Maybe it was a no 10 years ago, but it might be a yes today.
Yeah. I'll give you a great example of that. And that was, I was with a previous brand that had a minimum square footage of 1,200, and that was it. That's what was needed. But then we were approached by a large big box, and retail spaces, that's gold, right? So they said, well, you can't have 1,200. Can you shrink it down to about 250? Well, taking a look at the shared space, the cooler space, dry storage space, all those additional things, we were able to get it down to about 250 square feet, and really make an express concept. So even though the FDD might say, this traditional or this non-traditional is X amount, until, as Christine mentioned, until you have that conversation, you really don't know. FDDs are typically only published once a year. Sometimes you may get a revision in there. So for them to make an update or a change in there with a smaller square footage, you may not necessarily find it if you're just researching by FDD, but I would still go back to, Christine's, one of her original questions, which was, what should you know about your business? Really, once you narrow it down, your infrastructure needs, as Catie mentioned, what are you willing to invest? How much room do you have? And if it's a small square footage, then, what concept would really cater to your customers? And once you know that, then there is going to be a nice, offering for you in this franchise space that could, cater to that maybe smaller footprint. So I would say go after what you think you want, and then let the conversations advance you forward to see if they'll make adjustments or get creative with either their menu or their square footage requirements.
Catie, what are your thoughts on that?
Fully agree and echo what Shannon says. And I'll also say you're welcome to use myself as a resource. If chicken isn't right for you, I'm happy to chat through what you're interested in and share with you. We have lots of colleagues and friends in the business and that represent a number of food concepts that work in this industry. So always happy to help chat through any of that.
The question about
too, my phone is open. We're members. We're here to serve, not just promote our own brand. So as an advocate of franchising, I'm here as a resource, just like Catie. Just reach out. We'll schedule a call, and we'll get you in the right direction.
Thank you both for that. That question about square footage reminds me the other trend that's growing in travel centers, of course, and in food, I think in general, is grab and go. And is that something that you might have that same flexibility for if you're talking with a potential franchise brand about how can we adapt this offer so that it includes a grab and go component?
I can jump in there. Yes, that grab and go has always been important to Chester's, but really COVID is what knocked it over the edge. Is we have to have grab and go, so we have a separate piece of grab and go equipment for that, and we have locations that put it sometimes right with the Chester's or sometimes on the store side of the travel center, right next to the registers. So they're able to grab it right when they're checking out. And that's a huge piece of the business. Load it with chicken bites, chicken sandwiches, portable food they're grabbing on the go. So that's vital. Absolutely.
Right. And I love that you said that's something that, it really grew, existed before, but grew after COVID. So I have to imagine that, again, if you want it, ask for it. And to Shannon's point, see where the conversation takes you, right?
Absolutely.
Amy, yeah.
Yep. Someone had shared that they put a subway into 383 square feet. Just be creative. That was their advice. So I thought that was helpful.
Wow.
I'm assuming you're going to talk about this at the end, but I'm just going to throw it out there so you'll know it's coming, Christine. That someone asked if we had a list of active franchisors who might be interested in leasing in the travel center space. I know there's resources talk at the end.
We certainly have our buyer's guide, and I would say reach out to us, anybody on NATSO staff. We can certainly share with you the folks who are NATSO members. We also, and I will sneak peek, but we recently worked with Fran Data, which is a research and consulting group that focuses specifically on that franchise space. And they agreed to give a 10% discount to NATSO members, and they can help with these kinds of questions as well. How do you find that right partner? So one, you can certainly contact us. If anybody knows Darren Schulte on our team, he will happily connect you with a lot of potential partners. We have that buyer's guide, and then we have this additional new resource as well. Anything else, Amy?
We have a couple, but why don't we go to the next slide and then we can hop back to them.
All right, sounds good.
I'm going to disappear.
So the nuts and bolts, how do you make that pitch, right? You've identified your strategic fits, and you want to get through, I think in some cases, the noise and make your best case. And I can say that over the years, we've certainly heard from travel centers who have said, that first step is the hardest part. Like, how do you get someone to return the call? How do you connect to a human? So Catie, I'll start with you. What's the best way to make that initial contact?
For us at Chester's, our website or phone call or two that's what we see. Web inquiry is great because a lot of leads come in at 11 p.m., at 12 a.m. There are times we don't have somebody ready to answer the phone. Yep. So, and we respond to all leads within 24 hours.
Wow. Shannon, what about you? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, same here. We do respond to leads within 24 hours or, same day by end of business day. But I do know that is a challenge out there, right? Getting that call back. I just elaborate a little bit here. We all know what a franchisor is looking for, someone who's going to follow the system, right? And that is really following their system, and by going to their FranDev website. Usually it's part of their, their overall website, but filling out that lead form. I would also say that within that lead form, there's always a comment section, and just let them know exactly who you are, so you stand out, that you're what you're looking to accomplish, and that, you do expect a phone call back. I would also reach out, on LinkedIn, to the franchise, either the director of franchise sales, or the VP of development, or VP of franchise sales, and just send, a message to them, and just let them know you just went on their website, and you'd like to have a call with them. My hope is that things have kind of changed around for for the NATSO members, and that you shouldn't have to really make your pitch anymore. That franchisors like us, we're looking to really just work with travel centers and non-traditional, and have those conversations. So I know really pre-COVID, maybe things weren't as open to collaboration like they are today. So I'm hoping that it shouldn't be hard for any of the NATSO members to get in touch with franchisors.
And then I think that leads into our next, like, how do you make yourself stand out? So if you're a smart travel center, what do you do at the location level that really makes your facility stand out as a desirable partner? Shannon, do you want to tackle that first?
Absolutely. The first thing I would say is be your authentic you, right? And that's what brands, what we're looking for is really, who's going to be a good franchise partner to us, and that is by way of really aligning with our culture and our cultural beliefs, following the system, of course, holding up brand standards, and providing good guest service. And with that, the rest will fall into place. But really to really, present yourself, or to make that, initial pitch. I've been impressed before when I've been sent pitch decks, and that includes, who they are as an organization, what they're looking to accomplish with that particular brand, and then really what stands out and makes them unique as a potential franchisee. And that is, really focusing in on your operational efficiencies, how your guest service, your guest metrics, your cleanliness of the facility, obviously, all of that, demographic traffic information is important too. They'll run those numbers too. But then what you bring to the table as a franchisee, and franchisors will actually look at, a single unit operator, and then also see the value, obviously, in, a 100-unit operator. So it's not that you have to be this big multi-unit in order to open the door. You could actually fulfill a very unique opportunity for that particular brand to maybe make an entrance into a market, or fulfill a certain need. And then also, we typically work directly with the travel center operators or the owners, but there are unique situations where areas come up for lease within there, and then those are also open discussions to have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Catie if you'd like to add anything.
Totally agree with everything Shannon stated, and all I would say in addition to those items are the cleanliness of the store. Like, what do the restrooms look like? Is the exterior well lit? Is the interior upkeep? What does that look like? Are the shelves stocked? Because when we look at those items, that points to how the store is managed. And I know we've previously talked about operator engagement, and top level commitment is key. So we look at those things to ensure it's a partner that we would want, and it's a brand we'd be comfortable putting our brand inside of.
You know, a lot of travel centers are almost a house of brands, right? Where there's multiple different maybe food franchises or other things going on the property. I have to assume that, you know, seeing whether you're a fit with those as well might take place. Is that part of the discussion, what other brands are present?
Yeah, most definitely for the time, for us, we want to ensure that it's going to be a good mix, but then we're not going to cannibalize on each other either. In addition to that, I do want to touch on a little bit about an operator, an owner who has multiple brands, and that could have multiple brands not only within one travel center, but really across their entire portfolio. So what I've seen in the past is some brands were just like, absolutely no, you can't have any other, like brand competitor in your portfolio. But I've seen where brands have worked around that and just ensuring that, their secret sauce is not going to be shared across. So I'm not sure if that was one of the questions out there or not, but I definitely have seen a willingness to, really work around that, no compete with the franchise community.
What about marketing? What can a travel center put in their pitch or in their conversations about marketing support that you would be looking for? Catie, why don't you help us with that?
So at Chester's, we do provide digital and physical marketing assets, and we run promotions a year for the Chester's location. But if the travel center is doing advertising such as loyalty programs that we can join in on, outdoor advertising, geo-targeted social media campaigns, DOT advertising, those are all great avenues that we would love to join in on there.
Yeah, we would, and I would say, again, part of the due diligence up front would be understanding what type of local store marketing that franchisor is going to put in place for you, how they're going to support you, because you might be unique. Their approach to, traditional LSM may not necessarily work for you, maybe for that 1 mile, residential radius, but also understand their willingness to collaborate and change things up, go outside of their standard norm in order to really, create and customize approach for you. That brand should also be putting together a local store marketing playbook, at least 10 to 16 weeks already laid out, starting a little bit before you open, all the way till after. You may need to guide them through on the uniqueness of your particular travel center, maybe some insights to help jumpstart, that initial marketing and advertising campaign until there's enough data flowing through to understand those customer preferences and behaviors. And then once that happens, ask them, or at the time of due diligence, what then are you going to do once that data kicks in, and how are we going to utilize that to customize some LSM strategies within, the 4 walls of that travel center. So again, just due diligence up front is very important, and that'll ensure that once you're up and running, that it's really plug and play at that point.
And are there, when the travel center is putting that package together, are there any other, let's say, non-financial things that you're looking for? So you talked about cleanliness. I think we touched on the owner engagement. Anything else that you're looking at that a travel center can highlight to make their case?
Yeah, absolutely. I would be looking at prime location with the store. It definitely, that would be a plus, right? The extended hours, we're focused on 5 day parts, so that would be a plus for us. Obviously, I touched on the collaboration. What are, we know what we're bringing to the table as it relates to local store marketing, but what else are you going to bring? As Catie mentioned, some loyalty programs and collaborating and leveraging that, but and then also just the operational, excellence that you bring to that goes really far, and knowing that you're gonna be all in and take action in the business, and then also in maintaining the standards, the brand standards, and the continuity of the program.
And Catie, I see you nodding with everything Shannon said, and I believe that Chester's also emphasizes that owner's engagement in particular, right?
100%. Out of all the studies we've done the last few years, our most successful locations, the one factor that's the same for the top locations is engaged operator. So that is the most important. If they're committed to the success and they're engaged, everything else will fall into place. It means that they've got the labor that's there. They're committed to all of the aspects of the brand that are going to make it succeed. So operator engagement is number one for us.
Yeah, great. Amy, I think we have one more question. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, you guys have been answering them as we go along. So good work, guys. This one is about QSRs, which I'm not surprised to see given our industry. They were talking about the type of challenges a travel center might encounter working with different QSRs, point of sale systems. You guys have any advice on that?
I didn't hear the last part of that. When sales went.
The point of sale. So they're saying, if someone wants to buy something from the C-store, but then also buy something from your QSR, if you have any advice on the point of sale systems.
Catie, have you run into that with as long as you've been in the industry? I'm guessing that's not a new question for you.
So we newly have a point of sale as an option, but it's not required. So in our history, we've utilized the convenience store's existing or travel center's existing point of sale system. So it has not been two separate POSs.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Okay, Shannon.
I was to say, then that's where I've seen, again, POS, that's one of those due diligence questions up front. They can let you know right up front if it's go or no go. The critical thing for, the franchisor as it relates to POS is to understanding the sales data and reporting that. So I've seen where brands have really worked with other POS systems, as long as that data gets to them and in a certain way on a certain time. You may have to negotiate how the royalty is paid. Maybe it's not weekly, maybe it's monthly when you reconcile the books and stuff. But I would definitely make sure that you ask those questions up front and get that ironed out. But I have seen where some of the most, I don't want to say stubborn brands, but some of those brands have really said, you know what, it's worth it for us to make this happen, and we can accommodate it. Usually the finance department has to weigh in on it too, just to understand if they have the capabilities to do it. But I've definitely seen it done.
Excellent. Any more questions waiting for us, Amy?
Oh, ma'am.
Then I think we can roll on to what happens if you have a question immediately after this call, which is what always happens to me. For NATSO resources, I mentioned our brand data toolkit earlier. If you're a NATSO member, I encourage you to go to our NATSO website. What you're going to find, one of the results of the research that Fran Data conducted, surveying franchisors to identify their attitudes toward the travel center space, what they're looking for. Many of those points we've touched on today. But you'll see the research from Fran Data that we commissioned. You'll see 6 key actions for attracting a non-fuel franchise, which takes that Fran Data research and adds some action items to it. And then one of my colleagues has made a pitch deck, a template pitch deck, again, using those findings that members can mark up, customize, make it your own to get started so that you can impress Shannon and Catie and their peers with all of your information. And I also, those are NATSO member only resources. The Truck Stops Here podcast that NATSO Foundation does is open to everyone. And as I said at the outset, there's some really good resources there. So I encourage you to check those episodes out. Thank you, Shannon, and thank you, Catie. I promised you that you would get the final word in this session. So as we leave, One, I would just reiterate, you were very kind during the session to encourage folks to contact you, whether it's about your businesses or just to get insight. And we've got your contact information here. But can you each leave us with your one most important step for a travel center to put its best foot forward to a franchise brand? Catie, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thank you all very much for having us. Thank you, Christine. It's been a wonderful session. I've enjoyed getting to know you, Shannon, and we're just grateful to be a part of NATSO. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being involved in the trade shows over the years and all the relationships that I've formed through it. So definitely reach out. We're here as a resource and would love to work together if the opportunity presents itself. So not to sound like a broken record, but in the spirit of an engaged operator being our most important element, I would say that top-down commitment, that owner engagement and top-down commitment to the success of a food service brand.
Thanks, Catie. Shannon, how about you?
Yes, and thank you, Christine and Catie and Amy. It's been a pleasure, and all of you who I can't see right now, but I hope we are able to connect at some time in the future. It's been an absolute pleasure, just learning more about the industry, but then how we can better serve and be better stewards and perhaps collaborate. I'll tell you that I just really thrilled to be a member of NATSO, and at Taco John's, we welcome, the opportunities to work with travel centers. And again, I would be here as a resource to anyone. I serve on the Women's Franchise Committee, so I'm here to be a good steward in franchising as well, and offer that support. I will say that what franchise brands are looking for, obviously, is a franchisee that is all in, that's going to take action, that is capable of receiving and giving real talk. But then also, in addition to that, being a good cultural fit and really just adhering to the brand standards. Now, you as a potential franchisee, really do your homework. Make sure you read the FDD thoroughly, you research the brand. Make sure you're going in with a brand that has, a solid reputation, a solid future, and solid support. So franchisee validation is very critical as you go through that process, and then, decide who at the end is going to be a good fit for you, as they decide who's going to be a good fit for them.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for all our guests who came on. We look forward to talking to everybody further. I'm sure that this is a subject that we could do a lot of content on. So I look forward to connecting with everyone again. Thank you.